Welcome to Bonuscast, the Brandon Sanderson Bonuscast. Here we're discussing just the news about Brandon's work in the Cosmere, because this is a special news bonuscast. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm WeiryWriter.
Also joining me is Ben.
Hey, I'm Overlord Jebus.
And you're still in a bathrobe.
And I'm still in a bathrobe.
Great.
I can take it off if you want.
No, I'm good. I'm good. We're good, actually. This week, guys, this is not going to be the official Shardcast episode for this week. But there is big news, crazy news, about a giant multimedia thing that's the Dark One. So we wanted to just do a special episode talking about that.
Yeah.
So what's going on with the Dark One, Ian?
So Brandon is ambitious,
as
we all know.
No way. That's crazy.
So he, on Monday, June 11th, Deadline announced that, in collaboration with a couple of companies, that he is working on a television show and graphic novel to tell the story of a Dark One.
The Dark
person
One.
Foretold to be, instead of being the hero that saves the world, they are the villain that destroys it. And also books and a podcast.
The podcast, I'm curious.
I can't wait for our weekly podcast responding to their weekly podcast and analyzing their podcast. Unless it's a bad podcast, in which case we don't do that. That's what we'll do.
In which case we'll do the first one and then we'll see how it goes.
It'll be episode 1 and then just no episodes later. It'll be great.
Yeah. So to actually quote Deadline's press release, Dark One will be a dramatic fantasy adventure spotlighting a young man who sees visions of strange and fantastical worlds, which he is told are just hallucinations. But this dark and deadly fantasy world that keeps coming to him is actually a real version of another world, one where he has been prophesied to become a tyrant and destroy this land of interesting creatures, sporadic electrical currents, and a darkening landscape. Because this is Brandon's Teslatopia, where
I forgot
electricity is... Yep.
Is it that?
Yeah, I forgot all
Yes.
about this. Dark One is the one with the electricity that comes from the ground.
I totally don't remember that at all.
Yeah, I completely. Yeah, he's always wanted to make one that as a world, but he's never been able to make that work because there is a variety of reasons that electricity coming from the ground doesn't work. But I guess if they're sporadic, I guess he can.
Yeah.
When did he mention Teslatopia stuff? I don't remember that at all.
Like, repeatedly for years.
Yeah, he's mentioned this a lot. He's always said he's been like, you just get like a light bulb and you can just stick it in the ground and it'll light up, that kind of thing.
Yeah, or toads that like shoot out globules and they're taser toads. Like,
oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
but he didn't say that in relation to Dark One specifically, right?
Yes.
Before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Like as early as 2015, he had connected these two things.
I don't know.
I was like, there's a few
It's
things
not
here
Cosmere, guys. It's not Cosmere anymore.
Which means world building can be a little looser regarding the science of an electrified world.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's also probably why, because it's been shifting in and out of the Cosmere, that I'm just like, whatever. I'll wait till announcement.
Yeah.
Just blanks from my brain. I don't remember anything.
It's not Cosmere, don't care. I was going to say, not only is it not Cosmere, it's also not Secret Project. This is not, we've got confirmation, this is not Secret Project.
No, it is not Secret Project. Secret Project is something else, which he's contractually not allowed to talk about, which is the answer he gave at MISCON. He cannot talk about it.
And he's never talked about it, whereas he had talked about Dark One a lot. So this not a lot, but...
But if you were still not sure, there is now confirmation. It is definitely not Secret Project. So that's good.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because there's a few of these things that are new, because as far as I'm aware, it was always just about a guy who was prophesized to destroy the world. But then there's all this new stuff about hallucinations of like another world that he's already destroyed, or that he's prophesied to destroy that one.
Well,
it sounds he's always said he's struggled to get the idea off the ground. So it seems like this is the idea he's like settled on to this is how I'm going to make this work.
So originally, it was just he was a prophesied destroyer of the world he lived in.
Okay.
But Brandon changed the story into a portal fantasy, which is somebody comes from our world to a fantasy world.
Like Narnia.
Like Narnia.
Yeah.
It's the best example of it.
Yep.
So it's what worked.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And you can't really do portal fantasies if you're in Cosmere as well. So clearly it gets worked out a lot better this way. Because if it's not Cosmere, then you can actually make it a portal fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Type story. And I guess the main thing, we got a TV show, a legit TV show.
Yeah. So this is being produced by Fremantle Media North America, which is a very long name, who they also are doing the American Gods television show on Stars, I think.
Oh, okay.
So I've not watched the show, so I can't testify to it, but from what I've heard, it has been well received.
I read the book and I watched the first 2 episodes and it was pretty good. I'm just not a big TiVo person, so I didn't finish watching it.
I have not read American Gods or watched a TV show, nor really watched much TV, and I haven't owned TV in many, many years at this stage. Welcome to TV Cast, where we talk about how we don't watch the TV there. But
yeah,
I guess we'll have to watch this.
We'll have to watch this TV show.
We'll have to watch this show. Yeah, that'll be important. No word for just the media company that it's involved with, not like any details about
no,
like,
from what I understand,
Stars or HBO or some other network or anything, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that means this is a long time away still, surely.
Almost certainly. Like even if they started tomorrow, it's a year and a half at least.
For like the first season, maybe? Yeah.
For the first season, yeah.
Like maybe they could produce second seasons. If there would even be second seasons, we don't even know. We have no idea.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's lots of interest nowadays in, fantasy TV shows. I don't know.
Yeah, fantasy is the in thing ever since The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and especially Game of Thrones, very popular.
Yep. Lord of the Rings was good, but Game of Thrones is definitely what launched this fantasy TV kind of
the fantasy TV
epidemic
stuff,
now.
For sure.
Yeah, TV. Yeah, I suppose Lord of the Rings was more movies.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Lord of the Rings made fantasy mainstream to a lot of people.
Yeah,
whereas
definitely.
before it was a lot more dirty, right?
Yeah.
So we have no idea when this would really take place.
So on Reddit, Brandon responded to this news being announced because people were excited. And Brandon, I've had to hide this news for a long time. It was almost 1 year ago that the Dark One outline finally stepped together for me at long last. We had interest almost immediately from Fremantle, and I've done multiple flights to LA to chat with them about it. I think this one might finally be the real deal when it comes to a Sanderson adaptation, which is amusing considering we don't have any books for Dark One yet. But if this goes forward, I'll be sure to write some.
Huh.
Which is nice. I mean, yeah.
The books are clearly not the centerpiece of this sort of thing. That's very interesting.
No, the novel books are supplementary.
Yeah. That is very interesting.
The TV show will be the main aspect of Dark One, I feel like. It's the thing that's going to cost... Yeah, it's the thing that costs the most money to make, so it's going to be the thing that they want to make the most money with, so they're going to want the freedom to be the central thing.
Yeah. And then Aramis asked, "Hey Brandon, I'm super excited to see this pan out. Dark One as a concept has always interested me. I'm a big fan of this multimedia approach, but I'm wondering what inspired it. Was it your idea or Fremantle's? Is this an experiment for other properties in the future at all? A lot of us on the 70 Chart Discord have discussed the sheer size of Stormlight, for example, and worry about DMG either going the Hobbit route, hours upon hours of content for a single book, which will really rack up even by the time we reach Oathbringer, or missing out on a ton of content. If Dark One pans out well, would you use this multimedia approach for Stormlight? And Brandon says, with Dark One, I've pounded myself against the idea for years. Finally, I sat down with it and said, what if I were going to design this for a television show or graphic novel first? Using Stranger Things and the recent Westworld reboot as guides, I dug into a parallel narrative, half in our world, half in another world, a kind of dark portal fantasy story. It came out as an 8-episode outline that I really liked, with a solid outline for 2 prequel novels about the previous generation. Characters still important in the episode outline. With this in hand, I took it to Hollywood and said, if you guys are interested in doing the episodes, I'm interested in writing these books, and we can intertwine them in hopefully a very cool way. Fremantle was on board immediately. They'd been intrigued by Dark One from a 1-page outline they'd seen back before I did this new treatment. Warning, I can't say how much of my original outline will end up in the show. I've never written for a television show before, and the showrunner will know better than I what will or won't work. But theoretically, the graphic novels will follow the outline pretty closely. If this works, will I apply it to the Cosmere? That's the goal. I do like the idea of getting some experience with TV/film through non-Cosmere projects, particularly as I see how things shake out these next few years in regards to TV film distribution.
And that last bit has been echoed in a lot of his comments. This is kind of a dry run for Cosmere adaptations.
Cool.
Interesting. I actually hadn't read that comment on Reddit. That's really interesting.
Yeah, because there's obviously a lot of people worried about it's going to take so much of Brandon's time and Cosmere stuff, and like there's less risk if this doesn't work, as opposed to something Stormlight, like a movie or TV show. If that doesn't work, that's real bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to respond to the taking away time from Brandon, this next one does this next quote. Eagle206 on Reddit said, very happy for him that this is getting off the ground, but also worries me a bit. I've been through the waiting game with George R. R. Martin, J.K. Rowling, and Robert Jordan. I started reading Wheel of Time when I was like 13 and finished when I was 34 or so. I'm worried that some of the stuff that sounds awesome will never see the light of day or be 40 years in the future. The second half of the Stormlight archive or Warpbreaker 2, for example. I also wish this was in the Cosmere because it would be a great tie-in. I'm also worried that it fails and kills any chance of his other works being adapted. Either way, hoping that my fears are unfounded and it's storming awesome. Sounds cool. And Brandon says, I think we want this to not be Cosmere because that would both give me a chance to dabble in Hollywood, but also not risk the continuity of the Cosmere until I have more of a reputation there. Also, I don't think you have to worry. So far, this hasn't divided my attention too much from other projects. I've spent maybe a day every few weeks or so on Dark One, and I don't anticipate letting it consume me too much.
That is the nice thing about having showrunners do it. Like, I made an outline and stuff, and
leaving it to the TV people, they've got their own writers for it. Obviously, I imagine he'd be writing the books, maybe.
Yeah, I mean that's what he said there. And
he'd be writing the tie-in books,
right?
But he might write one of the episodes.
Yeah,
maybe
or something like that.
Maybe produce them.
Yeah, he'll be a producer.
Yeah,
because George R. R. Martin usually writes one episode of Game of Thrones for every season, or he has in the past. But he doesn't write all of them because then people would murder him for not writing the books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're fortunate in that we have an author who writes books regularly.
I was going to say this person.
we get a book every year. We're still getting a book every year. Cosmere or not, he's putting out stuff every year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention as well, this Eagle 206 lumping in J.K. Rowling with George R. R. Martin and Robin Jordan. J.K. Rowling was nowhere near ever as bad as George R. R. Martin and Robin Jordan was. Yeah. She was doing a book maybe a year or two. I'm like, nah, it's fine.
It was very reasonable when the 7th book came out. I wasn't like, oh man, it was 6 years between books and stuff like that. It was never that. Kind of interesting though, in the previous quote, when Brandon said the graphic novel would steer close to the outline. I'm wondering what the difference between the TV show and the graphic novels will be.
That is one of my worries about this. One of my few worries that the graphic novel is going to adhere very strictly to Brandon's original vision, and then the TV show is just going to change everything.
Yeah, like prequel novels make sense. And the podcast actually is gonna be talking about events leading up to the TV show, so kind of a prequel as well. But the prequel novels clearly way before the novels, right? With those characters, that all makes sense. Is the graphic novel just going to do the same events as the show? That doesn't seem to make any sense.
That's the impression we're getting. That is graphic novel and TV show are the same story.
What?
Okay.
That is they're either going to be bad because they're going to diverge, which is going to be frustrating for the wiki. Because I'm always thinking about the wiki.
And continuity in general.
I am always thinking about the wiki.
Yeah.
Or it's going to really handicap the TV show, because graphic novel is coming out first.
Yeah.
So it's...
I reckon it'll probably diverge, and we're going to just have to have two whole different parts of the wiki just being like...
I'm really excited to figure out
novel.
which the novel will deal with, which one's going to be canonical or not. That'll be real fun. But correct me if I'm wrong. So Star Wars is a giant multimedia thing, obviously, right? There are many Star Wars comics, and there are comics that are oh yeah, after The Last Jedi, then we get to see, people reminisce about stuff in the comics, and that makes more sense than having these tentpole things than them being covering the same material. That doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Yes.
It would almost be like the novelization of a movie coming out before the movie came out. You get novelizations of the Star Wars movies, like you were saying, you'll get The Last Jedi, which basically says the same events but gives internal monologues to everyone.
That's
it would be
a good
that
comparison.
Coming out before the movie, which would be weird.
Yeah.
So my hope is that there's already stuff happening with the TV show behind the scenes, and that the TV show people and the graphic novel people are talking, so that that stuff starts being cohesive before the graphic novel comes out.
Yeah. Or I just don't want them to cover the same things. It's so weird.
I feel that as long as they are consistent with each other, they don't necessarily have to deal with the exact same scene by scene.
Sure. But it's more if you had the graphic novel dealing with stuff before this dude from our world came into that world, then it's okay, that makes sense. That's fine. But I don't if they were prequel-y, but Brandon said they'll follow the outline. Okay.
Yeah. It's one is going to spoil the other, no matter which way you go. Whether you watch the TV show first or read the graphic novel first, it's going to spoil the other.
It could end up being a style like a Marvel movie with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They cover the same events happening at the same time, but they're two completely different perspectives on things.
Well,
that
also
would be cool.
Well, that's true. Yeah, if there's different characters thinking about the same things, that would be very interesting. If the graphic novel was people in this world and main character is just the villain of it, but you don't get it from his perspective or something, that could be really cool.
Yeah.
I could see it as the graphic novel is from the perspective of the villain, of this guy having hallucinations, and is very focused on him, whereas the TV show is more ensemble, because that makes more sense for TV show.
Yeah, that's true.
That way,
yeah. I was gonna say I would have said the opposite, just because TV shows like to have a main character that they can sell things on, and so
it depends on the TV show. Not every TV show has a main character.
True.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them that are ensemble.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of the graphic novel, we got some art of the graphic novel, or some line art of the cover.
Yes.
Which looks pretty snazzy.
Yeah. Publisher Weekly, the day after the last announcement, announced more information about the graphic novel, which is that it's being published by Vault Comics, which was in the original announcement. But they went into more detail. And it's being co-written with Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, who are both comic writers I am somewhat familiar with. I've read some of their work. I like them. And the first volume is due out in spring 2019. So a little less than a year away.
Okay.
So we're going to be starting our first Dark One stuff within the year, basically, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Brennan, also as part of this, there's a quote from Brennan saying, Dark One is my first project that absolutely didn't want to be a prose project. After 5 false starts, it came to life when I imagined how it would be if the pictures I had in my mind were actual pictures. And then all of a sudden, in a couple weeks, a full and rich outline came together. I've since been excited to find the right people to adapt this into the visual story I've always wanted and needed to be.
This is a lot better of a plan than White Sand, I would say. You know?
Yes.
Like, you should make things for the medium you want it to be. That would be great.
Yeah.
Rather than, hey, it's all white. Wow. Cool.
Yeah. We should mention it is different people to the White Sand graphic novel. This is a different group of people.
Very different.
Yes. And I did touch on this in the comments of our news post about this, but this is a very different situation.
Yeah, than White Sand, yeah.
I know I'm a bit of a White Sand apologist.
You are. That's
as
true.
you would know if you listened to our podcasts about White Sand.
Yes.
The main issue, I think, with White Sand is that it's a prose novel. Like, that's what it's meant to be.
And they're
and they're trying to shoehorn it into the comics medium, which it just doesn't work. They had to cut out a lot that, Whereas this, it did not work as a prose novel. Like, this isn't, they're adapting something into another medium. This was designed to be a graphic novel from the start of this iteration.
Yeah. Well, the graphic novel was designed to be a graphic novel. The TV show was written to be a TV show. You know, the podcast will be written to be a podcast, and the books will be written to be those books. It's not really an adaptation. It's as he says, it's a multimedia project. It's not any one thing going to various different types of going to like 5 different mediums at the same time. It is 5 different multimedia projects being made, leading into the same thing.
A video game metaphor, it is the same game being published on different consoles. It is not a port of a game from one console to another console.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah. I get your analogy, even though it's not perfect. I'm with you.
No, there's a perfect example for this. Anyone who's watching E3 this past week, what they've done with Gears of War, where they announced in the same 5 minutes, they announced a Funko Pop mobile game, a tactics game, and Gears of War 5. And so you've got 3 different projects for 3 completely different ways of playing Gears of War.
Sure.
And they're all made for different things. Yeah.
Sure. I feel like I'm just not super excited about graphic novels because I don't read comics. I've never read comics. Like, I have never known if I want to get into comics, there's so much history. I'm like, I don't know. There's too much. I don't know. Right.
So for Eric and the listeners, I'm going to recommend Joyride, which is by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly. It's a space opera-ish story. It's complete, and it's this far future. Earth is under a fascist regime. Main female character 1 doesn't like that, so she plans to escape. This regime has also quarantined Earth away from the rest of the universe. So, no space travel. So, somehow she drags her friend, male main character, off to see the universe, and it's fun.
Yeah,
cool.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
What other stuff do you know Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly from?
So that's the main one that they're the main writers on, that I've read. But they've done work on 2 series, Batman and Robin Eternal, and the final arc of Grayson.
Okay.
Which I'm a Dirty Rotten Dick Grayson fanboy, so
yeah,
I like them.
That's fine.
They
I have no attachment to these characters, so whatever.
I've read enough comics to say that I like them, but I think that I've bought like 3 in my lifetime. I just borrow them from a friend I have.
I have a hard enough time getting time to read prose novels, and I know that I like that medium. So it's when am I going to have time to read comics? Like, I'm just not, Like, it's just not
a good thing about comics is I can usually read like one trade paperback, like one volume of like 6 issues in an hour or 2.
Yeah, that's true.
I've always found they're really short. I can basically if I do pick up something that's a bit thicker than just like one comic, then I can basically read the whole thing before bed and then go.
It's very easy to like start and finish as you're laying in bed, not falling asleep.
That is certainly true. But I don't know. I don't know. I always the Western art style. I'm always like, I don't know. The art's cool, but I need to see it in practice. What's actually going to happen? Because
we do have a name for the artist.
Oh yeah, we do.
Which it was not in the press release.
Knows.
But Jackson Lansing did post about it on his Twitter, and it's an artist that he and Colin Kelly have worked with before, and his name is Nathan Gooden.
Cool.
So
great.
Check our news post because it has the cover art for the first volume, and then some line art.
Yeah, I'll try
people
and
on the.
Yeah. I'll try and get that in the podcast image. Cool.
Speaking of podcasts.
Yeah, speaking of podcasts, there's also a podcast, which is apparently going to shed further light on incidents leading up to where the TV series will begin. Cool.
See, the only... do you guys listen to many podcasts that aren't just people chatting away, like story ones?
Honestly, I usually listen to people chatting about things. I don't really listen to story things.
Yeah. The main, people chatting about things.
I'm too busy to, I can't even watch shows. I need to watch, a video game stream where I don't have to pay attention a lot. I just can't do it. So if I need to pay attention too much, I'm just not gonna do that. It doesn't matter.
The only one... Yeah, I've only ever done one, which was the Hunt the Truth podcast series, which was the lead up to Halo 5, and it was a pretty good podcast in itself, and then ended up being completely irrelevant to Halo 5.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, and so when I hear a podcast prequel, my mind immediately goes, "Cool, I'll listen to it," but I have absolutely no expectation that it will actually relate to this show or the graphic novel or the books. It'll probably be its own little thing.
I think
because they're purely auditory, audio things. It's
I can't
hard.
pay attention to audiobooks. It's so hard for me. It's so hard for me to pay attention. I have the attention span of a rat. Ian will know off the podcast. He'll be talking with other people. I'm doing something else, and he's like, "Did you get any of that, Eric?" I'm like, "Nope, wasn't paying attention at all. Was not paying attention in any way." This happens to me all the time.
Yeah. But so Brandon did talk a little bit about the format of the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
On Reddit, XYRD, sir. Sure. What is the podcast piece going to be like? An old style radio serial or something? Brandon, the original pitch was something more contemporary, like a fake version of the podcast Serial, but in-world and dealing with a specific character. But a lot will depend on how the series develops. So, do any of you know what are any of you familiar with Serial? What that is?
I imagine it's
no idea.
one of these serial type podcasts with a story.
It was actually an investigative journalist.
Oh,
Like the first series, like diving into as a case.
Okay.
It was case of a guy who went to jail for allegedly killing his girlfriend.
Okay.
Like 20 years ago, and it's delving in what actually happened.
I can see
okay.
that being compelling.
Like
interviewing like people who were there, trying to get to the bottom of the situation.
like Making a Murderer or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's very similar.
Okay.
That's kind of interesting.
Which it was incredibly popular.
Yeah.
With I did not listen to it, but
Okay, so it'll be so if he's saying it's like if he's saying it's like that, it'll be less like a story and more just like an investigative piece kind of thing.
Yeah, it'll be. I'm sure there will be character to it. That the narrator will be an in-world person.
Yeah.
Like, trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. The only other story-based thing that's a popular podcast is like Welcome to Night Vale. I've never listened to that either.
Yeah, that is also incredibly popular.
I listened to the first like 4 episodes and then realized I wasn't an emo teenager anymore and didn't enjoy it. I'm going to get so much hate for saying that.
You are. Send your angry messages to who's that Cosmere character at gmail.com.
This actually is mildly amusing to me because back in the day, before writing excuses was the thing, Brandon's brother Jordo wanted to make a podcast. With Brandon writing a story, like an old style radio serial, and Brandon's like, I don't got time for that. And so they did writing excuses, 15 minutes of writing excuses every week. You're out of excuses, go write, blah, 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 blah.
That must be real great to have a 15-minute podcast, just saying. That sounds amazing.
15 minutes in quotation marks, because it's often like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's not over 90 minutes, okay? Yeah. Just saying. That sounds luxurious. Just saying. Yeah, I don't know. It will be interesting to see how these connect. I wonder. I'm interested to see how much the community, the 17 Char community, the Sanderson community overall will pick up on these things, because maybe in our corner of the fandom centered through 17 Shard, they really like Cosmere and don't really care about anything else.
That is patently false. There are people that like non-Cosmere.
No, that's true. There are
dozens of them.
But there's a lot more Cosmere conversation. Yeah. You must admit, right? True. There's a lot more of that.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how much buzz this will get. How I think things will need to fit together nicely for a lot of like mega fans like us to really get invested, because that's the cool thing with the Cosmere. There's the connections with all these other things. There's the connection of
working it all out,
right, and that's fun. Among many other reasons why people like the Cosmere. So if these things don't fit together, that is not going to be good.
Yeah.
I don't actually mind that too much, because my expectation when it comes to continuity of anything outside of books, where I quite like the continuity of things to be, because there's room to establish rules and have them, there's a single creator working on a book. So when it comes to things outside of books, for me, continuity doesn't matter as much. So I'll probably listen to the podcast. I'll probably watch a couple episodes of the TV show if I like it. I'll watch all of it. And I don't mind if they don't really match up, as long as they're good within themselves. And That's how I see it. I'm not too bothered about them all being super cohesive. I would just be happy to get
You
a TV
also
show out of it.
don't write for the wiki.
I also don't write the wiki.
I'm coming at it from more of a perspective of, like, oh, I watched this show. Can I get like more detail about this thing? And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of other stuff that you can get involved in.
Yeah.
You can look at the graphic novel, and you can look at the podcast and get more things. And then there's this prose novel and stuff. And I feel like it would not be good if those like didn't connect. That's why I'm really worried about the graphic novel and TV show overlapping, because I'm like, if there was things with the graphic novel that left open questions in the TV show, then you're more hyped for the TV show, and then you want to watch it, right?
Yeah.
Or things in the TV show that they don't necessarily like dive in as deep to something that is in the graphic novel.
Yeah. So that just like would generate more hype for everything and get people really excited for this new universe that isn't Cosmere, which I think is like
that makes sense,
for
actually,
our fandom, I think is pretty important, right?
That makes
like,
sense.
Start to generate that hype. Because
I think I've been abused too much by the Warhammer 40,000 way of dealing with consistency, which is basically they've come out and just said, every author writes their own consistency, and even then they don't have to abide by their own rules. And I'm like, okay, fine, that's cool, whatever.
So like there are some better out examples than Warhammer. Like in Star Wars, there are people who are just like, we're the continuity guys, and we're gonna make sure that it's you have some freedom, right? But that there's the story team, right? And like with Marvel, they obviously have a team to pay attention to continuity, even if I guess Spider-Man Homecoming had some continuity problems. I don't know. Like the years don't match up properly or something. Some people are very upset about this on the internet. That's fine if you are. I don't know. I don't think too closely. They tend to match up pretty well. Like if they match up pretty well, that's gonna be fine, right?
Yeah.
If there's gonna be like
character I dies in the graphic novel and lives in the TV show.
Yeah, like how much they'll the Game of Thrones show will diverge from the last two books. A lot, right? Like that's not gonna be great if this happens here. But I don't know. I guess we'll have to get TV, but that'll depend on what TV this comes out on for the show, right?
Yes, that definitely matters to me.
Yes.
I abide.
No.
Here in the UK, we get everything on the variety of channels. Yes.
Yes. Great. Thanks, Ben. You
can cut that if you want us.
But I don't know.
But this is another thing from Reddit. Rizva Nusef asked Brandon, should I activate my hype thrusters? Brandon, on full thrust. If this comes together behind the scenes and everything points toward it working, then we should have some announcements in the near future that will be very cool.
That's interesting, because I've always seen Brandon's always talked about things coming up where he's always like, maybe don't hype too much. Let's see how it turns out. So for him to be saying,
at every point before this, when it comes to adaptations, he's like, hold your horses. Like this thing takes forever, and it might not even happen. Whereas Brennan is very excited about this, and you can tell.
Yeah, I mean, when in like the last year or so, at least for me, when Brandon's like, Oathbringer's gonna be awesome, get hyped, and I'm like, yeah, get hyped. And there's definitely for people who didn't like it, but I was really hyped, and Brandon, when he's hyped, has not really led me astray. It's not as if he hyped up the White Sand graphic novels too much, right?
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking as well.
Thing, cool. So if he's excited, that's good.
Makes me feel better about it,
Let's talk final thoughts. Ian, what are your final thoughts on this?
So, most prominent is that I am very excited that he's doing another graphic novel, so you can see that, hey, this can be a good medium
for Brandon
if we actually treat it right.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that working on this might open up the Cosmere to graphic novels again. If they are stories designed to be a graphic novel.
Yeah.
And I am hopeful because being pessimistic is stupid.
Oh, okay.
Yes. That's one of my personal pet peeves when people are pessimistic for no good reason.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Ben, what are your final thoughts?
I'm pessimistic about this for no good reason. I am hoping for a nice podcast out of this, a good couple of books. I probably won't read the graphic novel unless, like you guys say, it's like a really, really good, and then yeah, sure, I'll probably pick it up. And
unless you're on the podcast where we talk about the graphic novels, Ben.
Also, I'll probably be on the podcast that we talk about the graphic novels. So I probably should. I'm hoping for a good TV show out of it, but I'm not like, yeah, let's proper get into it. I'm just kind of like, I hope they're good, but if they're not, I'm not attached to the Dark One as an idea or as a franchise or as a project. So I'm just like, cool. I hope it's good, but if it's not, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, that isn't understandable. You're not being like, oh, this is going to be horrible.
Oh,
yeah. That's true. Yeah, that's like, totally different.
That's the pessimism that I'm like, no, there's no need for that. Like, just.
If this was a straight up adaptation from one medium to another, I would be a lot more pessimistic. But because it seems like it is a project built from the ground up to be this variety of different mediums, that makes me more hopeful that there will be something good instead of what I imagine. I'm not a big fan of adaptations from one medium to another. They generally don't work. We've had a few examples of good stuff, but
well, that's true.
They can be good. Most of them are bad.
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm worried about the TV show, because TV shows have lots of people in the kitchen, and it can very easily be bad. Whereas, in some respects, I guess I'm a little more excited about the graphic novel, because the graphic novel doesn't have that many people working on it, right? And if the writers are good, like you say, Ian, then it's like, okay, that's fine. Like, if I hope the art's good and I can enjoy it. Like, that sounds pretty good, right?
Yeah, and these two writers, as far as I can tell, they always work together.
Awesome.
Like, they refer to themselves as a hive mind. The hive mind.
Okay.
Oh, great, great.
So it's not like there's three people. It's more like two people, Brandon and this team. That, like, these other two people always work together. So it's not going to be.
And the artist. Don't forget about the artist.
Yes. Yeah. The art's very. Yeah.
Art is very
that was another problem with
art
is very important. Like, man, if you don't like the art, that. I mean, the art looks reasonable here, right?
Yes.
Or if the artist doesn't ask questions like, "Hey, are there radios in this story or not?"
Well, okay. Again, that's a continuity issue with Cosmere stuff. That like it's hard to coordinate those. This will be easier to do. I feel like they have. I don't know. We'll have to see. Ultimately, I'm not like super hyped just because I don't really. The pitch has always been okay, but it's not been like, oh man, I'm really excited to read that, right? Like the pitch by it, like it could be good. If it's not, it's not going to like scar me or something. I'll just be like, oh okay, I didn't.
I have always liked the pitch. I have always liked the idea of the entire Dark One idea, and I have always liked the idea of the electricity ground. Now, I'm curious to see what he does with that.
Yeah,
or what they all do with that.
Yeah, it could be really good, but I can't say I am hyped. I'm not really. It's just like, okay, it's a thing, but
are you usually hyped about non-Cosmere things?
No, I'm not. That is absolutely true. I have still not read Legion 2. I've never read Legion 2. It took me. It would be embarrassing, listeners, if you heard some of the stuff that I've procrastinated on reading on for some time, because I definitely do that. So I don't know. It's fine not to be hyped. If you're not hyped, you're not disappointed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like if
yeah.
But
that is an accurate statement.
Yeah. Well, at least if you are disappointed, it's not like I'm soul crushed and I'm going to write angry letters and angry forum threads. So, that's nice.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, if you are not hyped, don't harsh the hype of those who are hyped.
Yes.
If Brandon says get hyped, that probably means it's pretty good. I will say, It's just I haven't personally witnessed the hype yet. So I cannot actually get hyped yet.
Hearing
until,
Brandon
I
say
see it,
Yeah, hearing Brandon say "get hyped" has that little twinkle in the bottom of my chest, going like, "Ooh, get excited!" Because Brandon said "get excited," and he's generally a pretty good.
If Brandon was like, for however many years, like 5 years, more than 5 years at this stage, he's been talking about Dark One, 5 attempts, and he's like, "This sucks, this sucks, this sucks. Oh no, this is good." It's probably pretty good, right?
It's probably pretty good.
He can usually recognize when something's bad, because he tossed it a bunch of times. So that is promising. I'm worried about how it's all going to connect together, and I really don't want to listen to audio stuff. I really don't. I'm not excited about that.
Well, you're on the podcast that talks about it, so you're going to have to.
Yeah. Maybe I'll outsource it to someone else of you guys, so I don't have to do this all the time.
I'm a completionist, so I will be reading, watching, and listening to everything.
Yeah.
Sorted.
I'll just ask you if things are canonical or not, Ian, just like I usually do. Is that a thing? Is that a thing, Ian? I don't know. But it's also possible that my hype is lessened because this just means that we have more work to do for podcasts and stuff. But good, more to talk about next year before Lost Metal comes out. So you know what? That's great. That's great. Yeah. That's what I'm worried about. So, that's fine. If you're not excited about Skyward, we're going to get some new Brandon stuff next spring, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we get Skyward this November. We also get new the Third Legion. Guess I should probably read the second one. Hey. And then graphic novel starting in the spring. And then Lost Metal next November-ish, I guess, right?
Something, yeah. Yeah. Cool.
That doesn't seem unreasonable. This is pretty good pace for stuff. Brandon-y stuff.
I'm happy.
Cool. Well, we wanted to make this 30 minutes. It's 50 minutes. It'll be cut down a little bit, but what do you guys expect? We kind of, we're a little more chatty on this one, but
yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this one. Stay tuned for Thursday for our usual Shardcast. And we hope you enjoyed this bonus cast. Follow us on 17shard.com, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, and feel free to leave us a rating on iTunes. And we will see you all Thursday.
Bye.
I actually have one more thing I'm going to say.
Okay.
Feather has ruined it for us because this was a perfect opportunity to call something Splintercast. But Splintercast is already a thing.
Well, okay. So I helped brand it Splintercast. You can blame me.
Okay. But it's more fun to blame Alex.
No. We had grand ideas for the podcast since 2012 that really didn't work out super great. So you're gonna be lots of things.
It's an Avatar cast,
No, boo. Boo. All right, and now with that, we're for reals. Going to see you guys next time.
Bye.
Caw.